Hello, good morning, children. Again, here your statistic educator Sanju Pal, welcoming you all to the class of statistics. Here, children, now we are going to talk about the secondary data. First of all, we are going to talk about the sources of the secondary data. Now, sources of the secondary data, you would find that we get it, it can be published or it can be unpublished, okay, from where the secondary data are obtained, okay, from the published sources, or you can say from the unpublished sources. Now here, first of all, we are going to see what are or which are the sources, published sources of secondary data. The first one over here, you would find the government publications. Now, while we talk about, say, the government publications, that is, the publications which have been done by the government, say, whether by the central government or by the, say, state government, okay, whatever the publications or, say, the data they publish, okay, those become the sources of the secondary data. Over here, certain examples have been given to us, right? That is, you can say, your central statistical organization is there. All these are the independent bodies of the government, say whether it is the central government or the state government. Say National Sample Survey Organization, that is NSSO, say Office of the Registrar General, and say Census Commissioners of India, right? Then Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, Statistical Abstract of Gujarat State, say Statistical Outline, Gujarat State Socio-Economic Review, say Gujarat State, right? All these are what? All these are the say the publications, okay, which are being done by say the government, say whether they are the central government or you can say the state government, right? Now you would find, as it is given over here, that from this published data of such a government bodies, you would find the information about the wholesale price index number you can extract, right? You can get the information regarding import and export, vital statistical data you can obtain, information you can get about the agricultural statistics, right? Similarly, you can get the result of the census inquiry. There's the population survey, that what we do, right? All such types of information can be obtained, okay, by the government publications, right? Now we are going to talk about, similarly, as we are talking about the published sources, over there also comes the semi-government publications. Now, which are those semi-government publications, right? Such organizations are, say, Life Insurance, say Corporation of India is there, State Electricity Board is there, right? Where you would find regularly they publish their data, the data which are quite important, okay, from the point of view of the public, right? Even the semi-government publications, okay, just circulate such data, right? So those are the sources of the secondary data for us, which have been published by the semi-government publications. Then obviously comes the international publications, right? Where, while we talk about the international publications, where you would find UNO, the United say Nations organizations, regularly they publish their data, right? International Monetary Fund, okay, they also regularly say publish their data regarding different countries, right, and their monetary and economic positions. Similarly, you would also find say International Labour Organization is there, that is ILO. They also publish their data because these are the international bodies, and the all the data comes from such kind of sources. They are the international publications, right? And as we use, okay, these datas, and we are dependent on these datas, okay, these datas are the sources of these are regarded as the sources of secondary data, because we rely, okay, on these publications, okay, for the data, and this data basically we use, right? Similarly, you would also find that what we talked about international publications. Now, see, reports of the research organizations. Now, independent research bodies are there, right? You would find even research institutions like Ahmedabad, say Textile Industries, say Research Association, that is ATIRA. Similarly, say Physical Research Laboratory, PRL, which is in Ahmedabad. Say Salt and Marine, say Research Laboratory. Similarly, which is in Bhavnagar, Institute of Economic Growth, Delhi, National Council of say Applied say Economic Research, that is also New Delhi. Okay, all these are the bodies which are basically stated in different parts of the country, and how and these are the research organizations, okay, whose reports basically we used as a source of secondary data, right? So these are the sources of the secondary data what we are talking about, that is, you can say, which are secondary data from published sources. Similarly, the local self-government institutions which are there, similarly autonomous educational institutions. Over here, while we are talking about autonomous educational institutions, that is the educational institutions which are taken care by the government bodies, right? Similarly, municipal corporations are there, Jilla Panchayats are there, agricultural universities are there. They also, you would find, they regularly publish their reports, and even they publish their annual reports as well. Okay, so the data which are basically published into their annual reports, those data can we can use for our own research, right? And that's why they are the sources of secondary data for us. And because these institutions and the bodies, they regularly publish their data, okay, these are the secondary data from public sources, right? Okay, in this only we are also going to talk about, say, the publications of say research, okay, and commerce organizations, right? You would find say Federation of Indian say Chambers of Commerce and Industry publish the journal, that is Economic Trend. Similarly, Institute of Chartered Accountants, right, they also regularly, you would find, say publish their journals, that is the Chartered Accountant. And also you would find the Institute of Foreign Trade publishes the journal, that is Foreign Trade Review, right? These are the commercial bodies or the organizations who regularly, okay, publish their data, okay, and whatever the activities, okay, they were engaged into and what they achieved, and such data basically we use. Over here also you might be knowing that we are having Chamber of Commerce, right? And they also regularly publish their data. So these are the publications of the business and commerce organizations, right? Similarly, newspapers and say periodicals. Regularly there are different types of data available, different types of informations available into the newspapers and the periodicals also. There are many who basically cut these informations and keep it, okay, so that it can be used later on whenever necessary. So such kind of say data or informations, okay, which are been available by from the newspapers and the periodicals can also be regarded as the sources of secondary data, okay, from the published sources, right? So you would find over here say the data, say, regarding economics and commerce, and we know that in newspaper and periodicals there are data, okay, regarding economics, commerce, business, sports, okay, which have been regularly say published, right? So we can use these newspapers and the periodicals, okay. Certain examples are there, right? As economics and say political weekly is there. Similarly, commerce, business today, Financial Express, even India Today. Such are the periodicals and the newspapers who regularly, okay, provide us the informations, and those informations can be regarded as the sources of the secondary data. Then comes secondary data from unpublished sources. Okay, now while we are talking about unpublished sources, as it is given over here, that sometimes the data may be drawn, okay, on request, say, from the unpublished internal records of the private and the public organizations. Sometimes suppose you are doing any research work, okay, you are approaching some private institutions and the public organizations to actually give away their own personal data, right? So whenever they are giving such kind of data or providing such kind of data, those data becomes the secondary data for us from, say, the unpublished sources. Okay, now you would find they prepare for the reference. Actually, such data are prepared for their own internal references, but we use those data, okay, for our work also. Such as you would find, we might basically approach an organization, okay, to know about the salary of their employees, okay, how much of services those employees have given, okay, their educational level, okay, even you would find what kind of investment, okay, that they do, whether they do the investments in mutual funds or not. Similarly, you would find whether they do the investment in mutual funds in, and say, public or say the private sector companies, whether anybody has done PhD or not, okay, having any PhD degree of any other universities or not. Such are the informations which you get from the unpublished sources, right? So those are the secondary data from the unpublished sources, right? So this is what we saw, say the sources of the secondary data, that is from the published sources and the unpublished sources. Okay, before using the secondary data, it is very much necessary that we take certain precautions. Okay, now why it is necessary? Precautions, why it is necessary? Because somebody else has collected the data, and that particular data we are using it. The person or the investigator is somebody else, and for its own purpose it has collected the data, right? And that's why, because we are using his data or its data, it is necessary that we take the precautions from our side. It might be happen that the sample size, okay, can be much larger in number, which might not be useful to us, right? Similarly, it might also happen that the inquiry that they have done might not be suitable for us, right? And that's why we have to take such precautions. Okay, you would also find even such kind of data, it might happen, might not be useful for our own statistical analysis, or we might not say draw any kind of conclusions from it, right? And that's why it is very much necessary excuse me, that we basically take precautions. Now, what kind of precautions we can take, right? You would find it becomes very much necessary before using the secondary data. Okay, it has to be verified that who has collected the data, that is what is the source of the data, okay, and from where the data has been collected. The data obtained from the records of the private organizations may be less, say, relevant, as private organizations collect the data according to their own ideology and prejudices, right? You would find, children, that while we talk about, say, the suppose if we are collecting the data from any kind of private source, obviously you would find that those private bodies, they will collect the data, okay, as per their own means. It might happen that those data can be useful to us or can't be useful to us. So it becomes very much necessary that we do take care just to see to the source from where the data have been collected. Okay, it might happen the data which has been collected by those private organizations may not be useful to us, right? So the sources of the secondary data is to be known and verified properly. The second precaution, what can be we can take? So the purpose of collecting the data must be relevant to the purpose of the study. Otherwise, the data will be of no use. Yes, children, we should be knowing what is the purpose of our inquiry or what is the purpose of our study. Okay, relevant to our study only, we should be basically collecting the data, or you can say we must rely on the secondary data, right? Our purpose of inquiry should be matching with the data what we are collecting from the secondary source, right? So that is the second precaution that we can take. The third precaution, the collected data must not be too old. Yes, children. Now, if we are collecting the data, okay, in terms of say price of the grains is there, gold is there, petrol prices are there. You can't collect the data which are too old, because we know that for such kind of products, the prices it keeps on changing, right? So you can't take too old data. It should be of the current time period, right? So that care has also to be taken while using the secondary data, right? Now we are going to see what is the fourth one. So before using the secondary data, the matters regarding scope of the data we should be knowing, okay, from which region the data has been collected, that has to be taken care of, right? And say the different definitions of the terms which they have used, okay, that also we should be knowing. Otherwise it will change the meaning of our own inquiry, right? Such kind of care has to be taken, okay, as we use the secondary data. Excuse me. Similarly, you would find, now we are going to see the fifth one, fifth precaution what we can take, that the direct use of say estimated data should be avoided. The estimates given in the data may be even wrongly calculated. Whatever the data and the estimates and the numbers which are being used by the private bodies, okay, those are to be verified and checked properly, right? Why? The reason is that it might happen the estimates of the data, okay, which have been given by such private bodies, it can be even wrongly calculated, or it can be even wrongly given. So it has to be basically taken care of that the datas are useful, the datas are proper, they are properly given, they are properly calculated, and then only such datas should be used. So that is the fifth precaution that we can take, okay, while using the secondary data. And the last one, right, that the method of collection of the data should be known so that the investigator becomes familiar, right, with its advantages and disadvantages, and to get the proper benefits of the secondary data, it should be used, okay, with the above precautions. Now children, you would find even the other institutions who have collected the informations, we should also be knowing its method, right, by what method they have collected the data, whether the investigator has collected the data in terms of direct sources, or say indirect inquiry, or say the questionnaire method is there. And now we know what are the advantages and disadvantages of these methods, okay. So we can now use these advantages and disadvantages. We can very well know about the different methods of inquiry, and we can come across whether such kind of collected data could be useful to us or not. And also obviously the other precautions can also be taken, okay, while using the secondary data. So these are the precautions that we can take while using somebody others, okay, say data, or you can say the secondary data, right. So this care has to be taken. So children, over here I hope that you understood this chapter, right. We are completing this chapter over here, right. If you are having any queries regarding the chapter, you can contact me anytime, okay. I will definitely solve your all the queries. Thank you very much children, to be very much patient, and stay safe, take care of yourself, and take care of your family. Thank you very much.